What is up, everybody? Welcome to the This is Bitcoin podcast, the show where we talk to Bitcoiners about privacy, technology, self-sovereignty, and building Bitcoin businesses. I am your humble host, Bitcoin Gandalf. On today's show, we talk to Mario Gibney, who is the head of community at LEDN. Mario and I originally connected on Twitter, but have since also met in real life when we both attended Bitcoin Week in El Salvador recently. Some of the things we cover in this episode include how Mario got into Bitcoin, the Seoul Bitcoin Meetup, how he went from working as an English teacher in Seoul to working for Blockstream and then LEDN, and we talk about LEDN's suite of services, amongst many other things. I'm grateful to Mario for taking the time to chat with me and you, the audience, for listening. Please enjoy.
Hi, thanks for having me on.
It's great to have you. So I like to kick things off getting the sort of orange pill story. So I'd be interested to find out how you got into Bitcoin.
Sure. Yeah. So I used to live in South Korea. I spent most of my 20s there as an English teacher, and was I guess in my mid 20s, I was kind of going through this phase. I was dealing with a lot of depression, and I kind of was a bit aimless. Like, I was teaching English, but it was just kind of like a job I did so I could live over there because I liked, Seoul as a city, but I didn't really have a lot going on or much direction. And I had this. I first heard about Bitcoin through this, through a friend of a friend, just kind of chance meeting at a bar. There's a group of people, and this guy was super interested in Bitcoin and Soylent. Those are the two things I remember him being asked about. And I'd never heard of either of them before. And he downloaded a, mycelium wallet on my phone and sent me a couple bucks. I was like, okay, that's kind of cool. This is money, new type of digital money. And he was some Texan libertarian guy. And then it was also related to Soylent. But I thought Soylent was way more interesting at the time. Because I used to skip a lot of meals, and for me, I ended up ordering a bunch later that year just to kind of replace my fast food basically I was eating at the time. And I sort of forgot about the Bitcoin thing. I followed a couple communities on Reddit, but then just kind of went out of my mind. And that would have been in 2015 sometime. And then 2016 I had a lot more time in my hands. I registered for this, I'd been studying Korean language at a language school, and then I dropped out of the program and I had a bunch of time in my hands. And I kind of remember this Bitcoin thing, and so I decided to check out if there were any meetup groups in Seoul that dealt with Bitcoin. And there happened to be an English-speaking one just in my neighborhood. So I swung by just kind of on a whim, okay, let's see what this is about. And it was this small group, the Seoul Bitcoin Meetup, run by Ruben Thompson. It was, those who don't know, he's an independent researcher in the space. He's a Dutch guy who was living in Korea at the time. So he ran this little group, which, was half a dozen people would meet up in a cafe once a week and just, chat about the latest Bitcoin developments. And I hit it off pretty well with the guys there. And my background is in humanities. I don't have any, computer science training or economics or any of that, but I'd always kind of been in general interested in technology, spent a lot of time on the computer. So I was hooked right from the start. I read the white paper a bunch of times before I got the basic idea. And I would roll up to these meetups and understand maybe 20% of what they were talking about. And then they would kind of give me homework, and I'd go back and binge watch Andreas Antonopoulos videos. So I started learning coding and cryptography in my spare time. I was learning, there was a free C++ course online I did, and Dr. Dan Boneh is one of the world's leading cryptographers. There's a great free online course and textbook you can work through, and so I started doing stuff like that. And by 2017, I was one of the organizers of the group, and 2017 is also when when cryptomania took off.
Yeah,
especially in Korea. So. Suddenly we were getting, 40, 50, 60 people RSVPing to the events. And so it got a bit more formal structure where, once a month we'd do an actual lecture and kind of rent out this lecture hall space. And so I started doing these presentations as well. And that's a great way to learn about Bitcoin, is commit yourself to teaching other people about it.
Absolutely.
I still remember taking the buses around Seoul. Okay, and 3 weeks out, I got to present to the Lightning Network. Let's figure out how this works. And pouring over that paper, and because that's a bit of a slog, the original Lightning Network paper. I remember that one. And so we by 2017, I kind of in my mind, I'm okay, I don't know if I can make a career out of this. And I still had it in my mind that you had to be a coder to help with Bitcoin. That was you had to be able to build software to do something with it. So I was trying to learn coding, but again, like wasn't my background. But then while the block size war was kicking off, you had this big Bitcoin Cash had split off, and Segwit 2x was coming, and so our group ended up writing a public statement to kind of take a pretty strong stance on Segwit 2x, and we were the first kind of like meetup group, kind of first just like random group from an area to do this, and a whole bunch of others started following afterwards. I don't know if you were you around at the time in 2017? Were you
No,
paying attention to the space?
I first heard. Well, I have like my, I guess, orange pill story, but I don't remember the first time I heard about Bitcoin. I remember the first time I remember hearing about it, but I think I heard about it before that. I just don't remember when. But yeah, it was early 2017.
Okay.
I worked in real estate. I worked as a real estate agent. I was viewing with a client who had like a super high budget and like a important job and seemed really smart. And he started talking to me about Bitcoin, and and he also told me about Ethereum, and he told me like, I bought it at $10 and it's now like, excuse me, I bought it at $10 and it's now at whatever ridiculous amount it was then, like 300. So that's when I first heard about it, but I didn't do anything other than just like sort of watch the price and
so you didn't kind of get into it until later on.
No, I found out this year by getting an email about an exchange going bankrupt in Hong Kong that I had signed up for an exchange account, but I completely forgot about it, and I never bought any Bitcoin. But yeah, and I was the kind of guy that was like, oh, blockchain, not Bitcoin, and anyone can just copy Bitcoin. It's open source. Why is it special? It's just a bubble, tulip mania, blah blah blah. That was me in 2017.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you were totally focused. But I mean, like, have you read the Block Size War?
Yes, I read it recently, and it's crazy how much of it happens in Hong Kong. Like they go to Hong Kong for conferences and stuff. It's completely oblivious to all of that happening.
You could have been part of it, man.
I know. I'm so gutted. I'm so gutted that I wasn't into it. No, but that's awesome.
We got a little footnote in that book, about the. I forget if it actually referred to our meetup specifically, but we got a little footnote about how a lot of the kind of like smaller groups taking a stance on Segwit 2x. So I remember reading that book, being like, oh, what if we're going to be in here? This was, I mentioned before that our meetup group had kind of written a few pieces of writing on it. But yeah. So around that's kind of how there was about 10 minutes where kind of everybody knew it was Seoul Bitcoin Meetup because of, this little stunt, I guess. Oh, I mean, it wasn't a stunt. It was like we just, felt strongly about this and wanted to make our voice heard. And so soon after that, Warren Togami, who's a VP of Solutions at Blockstream, happened to be passing through Seoul, and so he decided to swing by our meetup and say hi. And I met him, and we got along quite well. And so he eventually recommended me for my first job in the industry, which was at Blockstream. So I joined them in early 2018. The January 2018, I joined as a customer support lead. I was there for about just over 3 years until I joined the LEDN team in spring of this year.
Nice, awesome. So, what was it about Bitcoin? Because obviously you said like you remember the guy was into Soylent and Bitcoin, and you were actually more drawn to Soylent first, and then Bitcoin a bit later. What was it about Bitcoin that drew you to it, that made you think like, oh, I need to look into this further?
I don't remember what prompted me to look up the meetup group. I think it was just something that, because I think it was basically, I followed these two, a few of the subreddits. And so I think it occasionally would pop up when I was just like, scrolling through Reddit. And so I guess the name is in my mind. I remember thinking like, I don't really understand how this works. But I was just like vaguely curious. And then it's still hard for me to say what it is that drew me in. It was probably a combination of a bunch of different things. First of all, like it was just interesting. Like it's a combination of these, like a variety of different fields. There's like, there's cryptography, there's computer networking, there's monetary theory, and economics. There's the whole kind of social consensus layer. There's the kind of independence from authority angle. So I just found it interesting, and I also just like hit it off really well with the guys at the meetup group. I think had they, had personalities that didn't really jive with, who knows, maybe I would have not gotten into it at all, or gotten into it much later, for example.
Just a quick, sorry to interrupt you, just a quick note on that. So I was thinking about this the other day because of the way I got into it as well. It was really down to people that I sort of respected or aspired to be like or looked up to, talking about it to me, that got me interested in it. I think if it had been mentioned to me by people that I didn't really care about or I didn't think very highly of, I probably would have just disregarded it. But the fact that I heard it from those kind of people made me pay attention. And I often like you often see on Twitter people saying like, I've tried to orange pill so and so. It happens to me too, right? I've tried to orange pill so and so.
They don't respect you.
Correct. I'm thinking this, right? Because looking at people that I talk to about Bitcoin, the people that I've managed to get into it like think I'm smart or like they have a positive view of me, and then there's people who think I'm crazy or whatever. They're like, oh, it's just it's just Gandalf being crazy.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So I thought that was interesting because you just said that you said essentially the same thing. Like if you hadn't gotten along with the guys, maybe you wouldn't actually have paid any attention. So that's just what spread that thought in my mind.
Yeah. I mean, I think that people underestimate the role that kind of chance plays in this kind of thing. Like, I think it was a decent show. Like maybe that meetup group hadn't been there. Maybe it'd been run by someone who was a dick, and then I wouldn't have gotten into it way later. Or like, maybe I'd had that, if I'd had that, chance meeting with someone in a bar like 3 years earlier, maybe I would have been in, 2013 instead. Who knows?
If only.
I think a lot of it has to do with just like, people you happen to meet, what your personality is and who you jive with. And, I've since gone to like Bitcoin Meetup groups in a variety of cities, and like several of them I like didn't really have a desire to go to again. I just like wasn't interested in the aspects of Bitcoin they were interested in, or they just kind of personalities put me off a bit. That has happened. So I think luck plays a decent role in it, and I think it's really easy for people to kind of build this narrative around it. Oh, it was the right time, and like or like but yeah, I mean I think there was a lot of chance involved for me anyways.
Nice. Awesome. I thought it was interesting as well that you said that after hearing about it and going to these meetups and stuff, you started diving into like, cryptography and C++ and everything else. In my experience, like personally, and just from talking to people, normally what gets them is the number go up thing.
Okay, so yeah, that was part of it. Like, I just find it's really like I get bored talking about price a lot, but like the fact that it seemed like a potentially good investment was a big draw for me.
Okay.
As well.
But most people don't go and most people. So like for example, like me, I didn't go, and when I first heard about it, okay, I didn't get in, but I understood the number go up aspect and whatever. But I had invested in stocks, and I thought I knew about a bit of economics and finance, central banking and stuff like that. And I went straight for when I see all these like people in the media saying it's blockchain, not Bitcoin, or it's it just reminds me of me thinking that I know what I'm talking about when I absolutely had no idea what I was talking about. But you didn't do that. You went to like, oh, I'm going to find out what this cryptography thing is. I'm going to find out like what's it coded in. Like I didn't even think about it as software back then.
Yeah, I think there's kind of two aspects there. One part is my personality. I like understanding how things work at a really granular level. If I can't really clearly break things down to the smaller pieces, know how they work, it really bothers me. I'm like, I need to know a bit more about this, right? So that's part of it. And again, part of this is also just, I didn't really appreciate this until I left and started seeing meetup groups in other cities. But the group that Ruben put together in Seoul was like extremely high quality in terms of like what we focused on at the meetings and what we discussed. Like if I would like, it would be hard to show up to those meetings regularly and stay interested if you weren't willing to dig deeper like that.
Okay.
And for some reason I thought that like kind of all meetup groups are like this, kind of, you have Bitcoin meetup groups, people show up to learn about Bitcoin. So clearly they must be kind of discussing how like SegWit works and like, what the UTXO set is and why it's important and node costs. I just thought that's what all these places did. And it wasn't, I think the first meetup group outside of Seoul I went to was probably, I think it was Hong Kong. Although that was interesting.
Is that how you know Leo?
Yeah, so I actually, so Leo and I missed each other when I went to Hong Kong, but that was the first time I was put in touch with him. So okay. Leo knew so those who don't know, Leo Bese, I think is his name, he used to run the Bitcoin meetup in Hong Kong. And,
yeah, shout out Leo.
And before I joined the meetup in Seoul, I think he'd come through once or twice and met the guys there, and some of them have gone to Hong Kong, so we kind of knew them. And but yeah, like and before the split, the main meetup in Japan was run by Roger Ver, which had a much more kind of like, I never went, but what was told to you is a much more of a social vibe. It was kind of like a party, and they would have these events at a bar, but you wouldn't show up and like debate the finer technical details. Whereas that's what we did like every time at the meetup in Seoul. Like Ruben would show up and he'd be like, yeah, okay, well today we're going to learn about the commitment transactions and like Lightning Network channels, or like like my buddy Sankate joined like a couple months after I did, and like he had a background in cryptography, so he would show up sometimes and like teach us about I don't know, like how digital signatures worked at like kind of lower level. And it really shows, like, I mean, I'm gonna like really pat ourselves on the back, like the we've had some we've made a lot of contributions to the space, because the meetup group, like the regulars, it was quite a small group, but Ruben has done a ton of independent research. Like he's discovered things like how to. I think he was the first to figure out how like you could get Lightning Network working on Mimblewimble. Soon after it came out, invented state chains, space chains, and like there's like a few other concepts like state chains. This novel layer 2 solution, which is actually being built out now, and so he does his own independent research. And then Sankate now works at the Blockstream research team, so he's worked on stuff like Simplicity and Miniscript. Calvin Kim is another guy from a group now received funding from BitMEX to do open source research. He works on U-Tree-XO with Taj Dria, which is
U-Tree-XO.
U-Tree-XO. Yeah, it's a way of oh man, it's if I try to describe it, I'll screw it up. It's got something to do with like making a Merkle tree out of the UTXO set, I believe.
Okay, I was going to say it's something to do with Merkle trees and UTXOs, but that's as far as I can probably guess.
Yeah, and the point of it is to greatly reduce the cost of the computational cost of syncing up a new node. It makes that a lot more efficient.
Okay.
Or it will once it's kind of properly implemented. So he's working on that, and like there was another startup was founded out of a few other guys there called BitHalla, although I'm not sure if it's still in operation. I've kind of fallen out of touch with them.
Do you still speak to Ruben?
Yeah, like, what's that?
Do you still speak to Ruben?
So Ruben and I have been hosting a podcast together for the last 3 years.
Okay, cool. I was going to ask you about that.
My podcast.
Nice.
Now.
Yeah.
So
we will talk.
Nice cue up for me. Yeah,
That's awesome. So Unhashed, right?
Podcast. That's right. The Unhashed podcast is myself, Ruben, and then Colin and Brian Alds. They're two brothers. Colin also used to live in Seoul, so that's the connection. And yeah, after I left, I still kept in close contact with Ruben, and I like a chat group as well. I talked with Brian and Colin as well, and so we started that podcast in late 2018, and we've been going just over 3 years now. So yeah, no, we're still in touch. Ruben's still one of my closest friends.
Amazing. And, I've got to check out this. Yeah. So I was going to ask you about the podcast. I haven't listened to any episodes yet, but I'm going to check it out. And this Seoul group sounds incredible.
Yeah, the Seoul group is currently defunct. We've been scattered to the winds. I'm here. Sanket has moved to the States. Calvin is still in Seoul, but Ruben had moved back to the Netherlands. He thanks to COVID. So I don't think anyone's still meeting regularly there. Our group lives on in the form of our Twitter account and our kind of chat groups. But yeah, it's been we've been talking about maybe doing a reunion sometime. But no, yeah, but it was kind of funny though. I was like really surprised that the rest of the meetup groups when I left didn't like operate like this though. And when I met Leo in El Salvador, how do you describe it? He described it as a very scholarly group, and I was like, yeah, okay, that's a decent way to look at it. But yeah, again, I was like hugely fortunate that I just happened to live close to a meetup group was, and like honestly, I just lived in that area because it was like the party area. Like it was near a place called Hongdae and Shincheon, which are where kind of a lot of the university students and artsy types get wasted on the weekends, and that's what I was into at the time. So,
nice.
Yeah, I never thought it would lead down this kind of path.
Awesome. And yeah, I mean, I was going to ask you about Blockstream. I know you've already mentioned that. So you got the job at Blockstream meeting Warren Tagami at the Seoul meetup, right?
Yeah. So he swung by. This would have been in November 2017, and And we invited him to present, and he gave this. I forget what his talk was on. It's something to do
Amazing.
with
So
security.
you guys would invite people to present to the group, to the
Well,
meetup.
he reached out. He reached. Well, yeah. If we found out that like there was a Bitcoiner coming through, and they were like well enough known, and that we would be like, hey, would you like to do a talk?
Amazing.
And
That's
like,
incredible.
yeah, half it was also like that kind of took the burden off of us because it means one of us could take a break from presenting. But yeah, no. So he reached out to us in advance and just said like kind of introduced himself and said he was planning to come say hello. And we were stoked. We're like, someone from Blockstream's coming. That's so cool. I mean, at least I was like that. I think because I hadn't met like many people from the industry because like not a lot of people came through Seoul, and we were a bit disconnected from a lot of the kind of exchanges and the people around things in the um, Korean scene. But yeah, so when he came through, we invited him to present, and he gave a cool talk, and then we went for drinks afterwards. And I told him, I said like, hey, like I'm an English teacher right now, but I absolutely would love to find a job in the space. And I said, I've been learning to code for the last year, but like I'm still kind of a noob at it. And he told me he was like, not everyone needs to code to contribute to the space. He said, there's a lot of need for people who have good like communication skills, for example. So I remember thinking like, okay, well, like maybe there is like maybe there's a hope for me to kind of get something more than like a total lower like entry level kind of coding job. But yeah, the role he eventually recommended me for was customer support lead. So I was it was a good fit because I like writing and I like interacting with people, but I also like had enough technical understanding. I could dig into the bones of how Blockstream Green, the wallet, worked, and then could do support for that. And so that was about half my job when I was at Blockstream, and the other half I worked pretty closely with Samson Mo on the marketing team. And so when Blockstream launched the Blockstream store, which is one of the first places to accept Lightning Network payments, I was the guy making sure our the stickers got emailed out to people and like making sure kind of when people ordered swag, we would send it correctly. And so I had to work with that and kind of did a bit of stuff with social media and like kind of copy editing and manage some translation efforts. So it's kind of like a generalist on the marketing team and then the support role. Yeah.
Awesome. Amazing. What was it like working there? I mean, like, you've explained what you did, but I guess Blockstream has this kind of like mythical aura around it because
Yeah.
of, yeah, just because of who they are and Adam Back. Did you get to talk to interact with Adam Back? 'Cause you're in Canada, and I understand Blockstream has offices like sort of different places around the world, right?
Yeah, Blockstream's pretty. The companies are very the employees are very spread out. So like the main offices are in like Victoria and Milan. I think are the main offices. I think there might be some smaller ones now. So like officially, Blockstream is a Canadian company headquartered in Victoria, but at the time I moved there, it was just myself and Samson, and then a few more people got hired at the office while I was there, but they were all no coiners, or I should say pre-coiners. So I was like pretty stoked to like be in an office with all these like hardcore Bitcoin people. And I was like a little bummed out that that wasn't the case actually. And and Samson's like he's kind of all work all the time, so you wasn't really didn't have much time to like shoot the shit about what was going on in the Bitcoin world to me. So in that perspective, it was like I was a little bummed out when I first went. But with internal chats, I was suddenly I got to interact with everybody else at the company, which is super fun. And we had a company offsite later that year, and at times I got sent places, and so I did end up getting to meet in person like most of the team at various points, and got to enjoy meals with them and chat, and I'm still in touch with a bunch of them, which is fun. Yeah, so it was a really cool experience. I learned a tremendous amount while I was over there. But yeah, it was a big change at the time. I kind of
And you
it's like
left Korea to move back to Canada for this job, right?
well, I was planning to well that's why I framed it for them. I was planning to move back to Canada anyways.
Okay.
I was done with my time there, and when this opportunity came up, I told them like the first couple of rounds were video call interviews, and I said, listen, like I will come to Victoria to interview in person, and I didn't tell them I was moving back anyways. So I was like, that'll show commitment.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
yeah, I ended up I was a day late for my interview actually. I had a layover in Beijing, and the first flight was late, and so I got
Missed
stranded in
it.
Beijing for extra 24 hours, and I didn't have like a VPN or anything set up, and I couldn't access my email, so I was like
Ah,
kind of panicking. But at the time, this probably isn't the case anymore, but for some reason, Proton Mail was not blocked by the Great Firewall. So I ended up creating like a new Proton Mail account and emailing them, hey guys, like I'm stuck in Beijing, so I'll be a day late. And, they were cool with it. And yeah, so I flew in the next day. I think it was a Saturday, and yeah, I guess they liked me well enough to keep me on board, and that's how that was my in.
Awesome. I have a silly question. Is Adam Back Satoshi Nakamoto?
I have no idea if he is. He hasn't told me. To be honest, that's believe it or not, like no one ever really talks about that at Blockstream. I think
he got asked. I listened to a pod with him. Maybe no, it was he was on Pomp on the Best Business Show, I think, and they asked him that as a joke.
I mean,
he didn't laugh.
I'm gonna come across as a bit of a buzzkill here, but I think this is worth saying that either like Satoshi, either Adam Back is not Satoshi or he is, right? And if he's not, it's just an annoying thing to get asked all the time. And if he is, he obviously doesn't want people to know, right?
Yeah.
And this is the same case for anyone you can ask. And and I think this was kind of very much the vibe, like internally, was that it was just like it was considered a little bit I don't know, like taboo to ask about it, because I don't have any I've never been given any hint that anybody at Blockstream actually knows who Satoshi is, and I think everybody there just kind of agrees that we should respect Satoshi's privacy.
Agreed.
So it's something I generally don't get into.
Agreed. I don't. Yeah. Obviously, I mean, nobody really knows, but my if I had to come up with a theory, it's not. I don't think it's Adam Back. I think it's no one that we could think of that we know. And I'm pretty sure whoever Satoshi is purposely destroyed their keys or is dead.
Yeah, I mean, I have no clue.
Right.
Who knows? Maybe it's Adam. Maybe it's Hal Finney. Maybe it's all these other names. And if they haven't destroyed their keys and they're going to spend it, we'll find out eventually. But so far, not a peep. So I think, yeah,
it's good.
I'm okay not knowing.
Yeah, no, it's definitely a good thing for Bitcoin that we don't know. Even having a known founder of a project, even if they're not like involved or like in control, is still a worse situation than just having someone who's completely anonymous or that's no one knows. So we're fortunate in that respect with Bitcoin. I'm not actually sure if there are any other projects where the founders sort of like just made it anonymously and disappeared and the project goes on. Nothing.
Well, Mimblewimble was the paper for Mimblewimble was dropped in a similar way. The original paper outlining the kind of concept was just dropped in an IRC channel, and the person disappeared. And they it was signed like they had the French name for Voldemort, whatever it was the kind of pseudonym. But then again, Mimblewimble doesn't have a specific project. It's just like it's a type of blockchain that kind of gives helps a lot with certain types of scalability and privacy, but with some trade-offs. And there have been a few different implementations, and those implementations are, it's kind of different. Whereas with Bitcoin, there was one paper and there was one implementation from the start. Now depending on your definition of Bitcoin, you could argue there are multiple ones, but maybe let's not get into that argument. But yeah, so I guess Mimblewimble is one of the closest things I can think of. There's also like, do you know who Dr. Eamon Gunsir is?
I don't. I've never heard of Mimblewimble either, so I'll need to check that out. Yeah, no.
Yeah, well, if you heard of the Grin is the altcoin that kind of I think the first one that launched with it, and there's also a Mimblewimble coin, and then I think Litecoin is adding it, but it's I don't understand how it works at a super granular level. I think I did at one point. It was definitely something we spent a few meetups digging into, but it allows you to right now, if you want to verify the integrity of Bitcoin's current state, the current UTXO set, you have to download every single block since Genesis and verify, and then validate all of them, right? In order for you to know that the current UTXO set is valid. Whereas Mimblewimble used a method that would kind of allow you to aggregate together that data. So in order to verify the Mimblewimble UTXO set from Genesis, it actually doesn't require downloading all the blocks. There's just a proof. The cryptographic proof that can be provided.
Okay.
That I think you need, like, you can just there's basically a way to verify the integrity of the current state with each block and just the newly created coins in it. And then it also offers some privacy guarantees where you can prove that an output is spending from a previous unspent output without saying which output that is.
Okay.
So really strong privacy assurances, really strong scalability along a certain dimension, in terms of initial blockchain download. But because of the cryptography used, I believe that you could either have perfect privacy or perfect integrity of coins. So you can design in such a way that like there are certain parts of the cryptography that are more possible to be cracked in the future, and you can design it such that it's possible that the kind of supply cap gets broken without you knowing, or you can design it such that the coin's histories can be unveiled, but you can't guarantee that both of those stay the same. So it's the type of trade-off that I think is unlikely going to make it to Bitcoin, because I think most people would consider those two properties to be something we will not want to compromise on Bitcoin. And there's also other trade-offs, like the scripting is much more limited in Mimblewimble. You can't just like send to an output and describe script. So, but it's a really interesting concept. Yeah, I mean, I'll be interested in seeing where it goes with Litecoin. They're looking to add Mimblewimble extension blocks. Yeah, I mean,
so it would be like an upgrade for it's not its own blockchain.
Yeah, I mean, well, what you can do is using extension blocks, you can just add an extra chunk of the block where you can make transactions that operate under slightly different rules.
Okay.
And so that's what Litecoin plans to do. So you can choose to use the Mimblewimble part of the block, do Mimblewimble transactions or choose not to. But yeah, I don't think I can say anything in much greater detail.
Okay, cool. I mean, it sounds like you understand a substantial amount, for at least to somebody who understands very little to zero of the like real technical details. It sounds like you have a decent amount of knowledge for somebody who would self-describe as not technical. I don't know if you describe as technical now.
I think I'm kind of technical.
Yeah, okay.
I don't have a technical background, and like.
So you were just not technical at first when you first got into Bitcoin, but then now like you've done enough that you feel.
Yeah, I think it depends what your definition is, but I think if someone said I had a technical understanding of Bitcoin, I wouldn't disagree with them.
Can you open the source? Can you open the source code and like read it and understand kind of what each bit does?
Oh no. So I don't deal with code very much.
Okay.
Like again, I learned how to code, but at like a super amateur level.
Got it.
So I don't usually get down to that granular level. Like I'm confident I could, but it would take me a lot longer to do it than people who regularly deal with that kind of thing. I just find it really interesting occupying that space in between where the technical development happens and where the layperson is, because one of the things I love doing is understanding how that works well enough for me to be able to communicate that to kind of the layperson.
Got it. Yeah.
I would say.
No, I was going to say, like, often you might find like somebody who's super technical, they don't know how to explain it to people who are not technical because their understanding so deep that they can't sort of go
in the space
simple enough, right?
And I hear them talk, and I'm like, "What are you going on about? Like, slow down. Okay, let me ask some questions here." I'm not going to say any names, but on the other side, the person I think who is most talented at this specific thing is Aaron Van Weerdum.
Okay.
Especially for writing. Aaron Van Weerdum writes for Bitcoin Magazine. And,
yeah.
And he does a fantastic job at breaking down technical concepts for lay people, and he does it he manages to do it without saying things that are imprecise or inaccurate. He doesn't just use kind of like he doesn't use like crude analogies, saying things that are like close enough. He kind of he manages to kind of simplify things, but in a way that doesn't actually include misleading statements, which is really impressive with considering the topics here that we're dealing with here.
Awesome. I'll have to check out some of his writing. I haven't had a chance. I know who he is, and I know he writes for Bitcoin Magazine, but I haven't had a chance to read anything of his. But yeah, I found like Stefan Livera podcast, he digs into some more technical topics, and I found that those episodes quite useful for learning stuff. And then just Citadel Dispatch with Matt Odell has been great as well.
And the Unhashed podcast, right?
Do you guys, so are you guys, I want to hear about the Unhashed podcast, so let's move on to that. So you mentioned it's with your, with the guy who used to run the Seoul meetups with, and then two other guys, Brian and Colin?
Yeah, Colin and Brian Alds. Yeah. So they run Privacy Pros, where they sell, hardware devices, like not like hardware wallets like Ledger or Trezor, but like, they have the Bill Photo, which is like is based on CryptoSteel's original design. It's like a metal device that you can input your codes in or input your mnemonic in. They sell other kind of gadgets like that related to Bitcoin, and now they're getting involved in the Bitcoin mining space, mining with stranded energy. They've they've been quite busy, so I'm kind of curious. The next few episodes we should be hearing more about that.
Nice.
Yeah, so they're more kind of on the entrepreneurial kind of a business end of things, whereas Ruben spent a lot of time on just doing kind of his deeper technical research. And so our podcast kind of it's very niche in that it's about roughly half of it is talking about pretty technical concepts and developments in the space, and like especially if it's like an episode with myself and Ruben, we'll often get into his research or other similar topics like about upcoming soft forks or things like that. And Ruben's understanding is quite a bit deeper than mine. So it's a kind of a good back and forth where I'll get him to explain things to me, and I'll try and like phrase things in a more comprehensive way. So we do that, and then the other half of the show is just really crass, lowbrow humor. It's like sometimes we just run out of stuff to say, and it just kind of devolves into four dudes making dirty jokes at each other. So don't listen to the podcast if your kids are around.
It's explicit content.
It definitely is. It's kind of hit or miss depending on the episode you get. But yeah, that's our vibe. So if you think you'd be into Bitcoin technical concepts and the occasional sex joke, give us a look, I guess.
Sounds amazing.
Yeah.
What episode would you recommend that if I'm going to check out an episode, what would you recommend I start off with?
For you,
yeah.
I think you should start with Take Me Down to the Bitcoin City, which was the episode we recorded just after I got back from El Salvador. I would be curious to hear how my impression of El Salvador matched or did not match yours, actually.
Well, and, I was planning on... go on.
Oh, yeah. I would say also in that episode, we talk about there was a BitNext research paper describing the kind of difference or comparing Bitcoin and Ethereum nodes and the kind of cost to validate each blockchain, which is really interesting. It kind of surprised us in a couple of ways. Ethereum was both not as bad and worse than we had realized in terms of the different costs to validate itself. And so we kind of dug into that one a bit, and I think there was one other technical concept as well, but that would be it. Take Me Down to the Bitcoin City. I think it's 2 or 3 episodes ago.
Nice. Yeah.
Just look for it. The cover is like Slash from Guns N' Roses, only I did a very poor job of photoshopping Bukele's face onto him.
Awesome. Do you guys do all the recording, editing, thumbnails, everything yourselves?
All homemade, baby.
All homemade. Nice.
Yeah. So we Colin did most of the legwork setting it up. He's run a couple of podcasts before, and it's pretty. We got a good system going. We just use Zencash to record, and then we have our theme song. By the way, we have the best theme song in the Bitcoin podcasting world.
What is it?
You will agree. It's the Unhashed podcast.
Oh, you have your own custom. You have your own.
Yeah, custom song that we paid a guy to write for us, and it just turned out amazing. So we kind of we got a good routine. We record on Zencaster. Colin make sure the audio file is good, and then we slap our theme song at the beginning, outro music, and when we have an ad, we'll throw it in there. Although we usually just read those off organically now. But yeah, and so we got a steady routine. Like I think we've been releasing an episode every week, once a week, for 3 years now. I think we missed 1 week in the last 3 years. That's it.
That's amazing.
So we're
Because
up to,
one of
yeah.
the things I want to do in the next few weeks or maybe months is like I want to speak to some podcasters. I'm probably going to have a couple on the show to ask them about running a podcast. Mainly because, well, one of the topics is like building on Bitcoin. So it's gonna of this podcast is like talking to people who are building stuff on Bitcoin. It can be creators, it can be people who are doing businesses and stuff. But I'm finding it takes an incredible amount of time between prepping for the guest, recording, like doing the actual show, and then going to edit, and then writing the copy for to release it, and then doing the different thumbnails and putting it on making the YouTube version. Like it's
so that's what
10
that's one of the advantages.
to 15 hours per episode.
Okay, so our episodes aren't like super polished. We basically like we don't go through and clean up the audio unless we remember there was something kind of that really needed to be taken out. And it helps that there are 4 of us, so we get to divide the tasks up pretty quickly.
Nice.
Like Zencastr is really good in that like you pay for it and it'll do most of the audio meshing together. Like so Colin takes care of that. My job is usually writing a description for the episode, preparing a tweet. Brian usually makes the episode cover art, and then Ruben does the kind of the publishing. We use Spreaker to distribute it to the different platforms, and then depending on who's missing, we will just fill in for the other guys. And we also don't do a ton of prep in terms of just the episodes. Like we used to do a lot more, but like now we have like a doc where we kind of chuck in stories, like news stories from the week. Usually we have nothing there, and then just like 10 minutes before we record, we're all just in there looking for previous news and we put it in. And so a lot of it is just kind of we wing it. We prep a bit more when we have a guest.
That's the thing. I've only been having guests, so I want to make sure I'm not wasting their time by like just having them and having a chit chat basically and putting it out. So I do want to like do some prep and figure out what I'm going to ask and have a general idea.
You spent hours researching my backstory, is what you said.
So I also have a researcher as well. That
you pay a researcher.
My mum is heavily orange pilled, and she's worked with me in my last 2 businesses. So she basically
she's
like
a researcher for this.
She's like she doesn't work at my last business anymore. So she's like, whatever you're gonna do next, it's Bitcoin stuff. She's like, I'm interested in helping out. So
a family show then. All right.
Yeah. So she sent me. I do some research myself, but I start off with a sort of a sheet that she made for me.
She makes a doc. Here's what you need to know about Mario Gibney.
She's like listened to
That's hilarious.
She's like, she told me, I asked her like, because it said in my sheet, like, you've lived in South Korea and maybe like left and come back and stuff. I was like, how do you know he lived in South Korea? I was like, I don't know. I listened to a podcast and he mentioned it. I was like, okay, cool. That's something cool to talk about.
Right.
Yeah. Well, she went through. She learned about.
I guess she's gonna listen to this. Good job on doing your research.
Yeah. She's definitely gonna listen to this. She went through and she like learned what LEDN is, and she like gave me like she writes like the LEDN is a lending service or
All right. Cool.
Yeah. It's awesome. She's great. But for her, she wants to learn, so this is a great way for her to learn about companies in the space, different things, and
that'll do it.
Stuff. Yeah. No, shout out to my mom. Thank you. Cool. So I'm going to check out that episode of Unhashed, and I appreciate all the tips on getting it done. I might do some episodes as well where it's just me talking about something, so that maybe it's a way to put something out.
I mean, again, this is something where having multiple hosts come in handy. That it's easier for us to get. If you're monologuing for like an hour, that takes a decent amount of prep. Or I guess some people could probably monologue for an hour. I don't think I could.
Sailor.
You got 3. What's that?
I said sailor.
It's I'll be honest. I don't think I've listened to the guy for more than I think like 30 seconds at once.
Yeah.
Like I don't have a problem with him. I just like don't find his stuff particularly interesting. I'm kind of like, he's got these funny one-liners and stuff, but does he? I guess he does a lot of those monologues. Yeah,
dude. His any podcast with him is like you ask him the first question, and then it's like an hour and 45 minutes later he's finished answering it. Because
great.
But he is. I think Sale is amazing, and but he does a lot of analogizing. And he'll just do analogy over and over and over
and
over
again. The only thing I
again.
know about him is like, MicroStrategy, his company owns a lot of Bitcoin, and he just comes up with like a shit ton of these analogies.
He's clearly like on a different level, and you wonder, like, has he gone away and like thought about this stuff first and he's just regurgitating, or is he coming up with it on the spot? If he's coming up with it on the spot, he's a brilliant mind. Even if he is not, right, and he's prepped it, he's very well prepped. You can tell he's like been a public company CEO for 30 years. Like, he's very polished and he knows how to speak. And
he also does a lot of podcasts though. Like,
he goes on podcasts that have like 2 views.
Like he wasn't saying no to anyone, basically.
Yeah.
You should have him on. He would probably join your podcast.
Sailor, if you're listening, you want to come on? I'll prep one question.
Of course he's listening. He listens to all media that I appear on. Definitely. He's a reply guy of mine. Yeah.
Can't remember what I was listening to. Oh, I think I was Cedric from the Bitcoin Matrix podcast. I think you were on his pod recently, and he just released it today, like literally a couple of hours ago. So I was listening to a bit of that earlier. I was out for a walk, and I saw one of the comments in the episode where somebody was saying that they used LEDN to like stack the dip. They leveraged their Bitcoin to stack the dip, and they felt like Michael Saylor.
Well, there you go, man.
So if Sailor's listening, LEDN makes individuals. LEDN makes individuals.
Let you be Michael Saylor.
Yeah. No, let's do it. So obviously people can't see you because we're not recording video, but you're wearing the LEDN t-shirt. So what is LEDN?
So LEDN, that's LEDN.io, is the company I currently work for, and we provide basic financial services on Bitcoin and USDC. So our 2 main product families, we have savings and we have loans. So for LEDN savings, we have BTC savings and USDC savings, and these are interest-bearing accounts. So you can deposit Bitcoin with us. We lend out the Bitcoin and earn yield on it, and then we pass the interest on to you. So right now you can earn 6.25% APY on your Bitcoin, and we do monthly payouts, and 9.5% on USDC. And so again, very, very simple model. You deposit the coins with us, we lend it out, pass on the yield to you in the form of monthly interest payments. There's no lock-in period or anything, so you can withdraw whenever you like. We guarantee withdrawal within 7 days, but it generally processes within a day, the vast majority of them. And so it's highly flexible there. And especially if you currently have like dollars in a savings account. This is I didn't really appreciate stablecoins as much until I started using LEDN, and now I kind of realize it's a great kind of bridge between the legacy financial system and Bitcoin, and that's it's just what are you going to get in your savings account for a bank right now? Probably not 9.5. So if you're willing to convert to USDC, move on. That's what we do. And then the more interesting loans, I think, for this show actually, referring to our kind of Michael Saylor conversation before, are the LEDN loans. We offer 2 types of LEDN loans: are dollar loans and B2X loans. So the dollar loans are Bitcoin collateralized loans in US dollars or USDC. So if you have a chunk of Bitcoin and let's say you need some dollars, maybe you have a temporary expense or for whatever reason, but you don't want to sell your Bitcoin. Maybe you want to avoid triggering capital gains tax. Maybe you are bullish on price and don't want to sell. What you can do is you can leave your Bitcoins with us, and we will issue you a loan in dollars or USDC. So we can either send it to your USDC savings, or we can actually wire you the money as well to your bank account if you prefer. And then whenever you're ready, you pay back the whatever is owed on the loan, and then we release your Bitcoin collateral back to your control. And those are our dollar loans, and then our B2X loans are for people who want to use the dispersed dollars to buy more Bitcoin. We found early on when the dollar loan product just first launched, there were some clients who are coming to us, collateralizing their Bitcoin, taking a loan in dollars, and then they're coming back and collateralizing just like a little bit more Bitcoin, taking the loan in dollars. And so B2X just automates this process for you. So you can, your Bitcoin collateral, let's say you put up 1 Bitcoin for B2X loan, if Bitcoin's worth 50,000, then we will issue you a $50,000 loan and automatically purchase more Bitcoin for you and add it to your collateral. So those are our main products. And this is essentially this is how MicroStrategy operates, right? Like they finance their current assets in order to purchase more Bitcoin, and now you can do that too.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, I won't say it, but there was a couple of things that made LEDN stand out to me versus other sort of lending services and deposit services. So what would you say, if you don't hit it, I'll mention it, but what would you say makes you guys...
I was going to say, I'm really curious what you were going to say.
Well, I was mind blown.
Yeah.
I was mind blown when I found out that you guys don't require a monthly repayment.
That's correct. Yeah. So we have highly flexible loans, no monthly interest payments. You simply take out your loan and the interest accrues. And whenever you're ready, you just make one lump sum payment and you pay back the loan. And that's it. So, if you, our loans are for like a 1 year terms. But if you pay back in 3 months, you only pay back 3 months worth of interest.
Oh, you did. It's not even the full 1 year.
There's no lock-in period.
Oh, wow.
So like the loans are denominated for 1 year because there has to be a term for the loan.
Yep.
And if you get to the end of that year, you either need to pay back the dollar amount or close the loan, or you can extend the loan for another year. That'll cost you a 2% admin fee to extend it for another year. You essentially pay back the loan whenever you are ready. So
can you perpetually extend, like do it for 3 years?
As long as
the collateral, yeah.
As long as you have a healthy loan to value ratio. So that's the LTV, loan to value, is kind of the important thing to keep an eye on. So we offer loans at 50% loan to value, meaning that if you put up, $10,000 worth of Bitcoin as collateral, we can issue a loan for $5,000, 50%, right? And you get margin called at 70% loan to value. So if the the price of Bitcoin goes down by, let's say, 20% or something like that, then the amount we loaned you will be roughly 70% worth of collateral. At that point, we'll be emailing you and be like, hey, you should really top up your loan. If it gets to 80% loan to value, we are forced to close the loan. So we will sell 80% of your collateral, and then you don't owe us the dollars anymore. The remaining 20% will go back to your control. And so as long as you have a healthy loan to value ratio, if you take out a loan and the Bitcoin price goes way up, like doubles, you'll be at like 25% loan to value.
Can you then withdraw more money at that point, or take some collateral back, or is that fixed for that loan for the term?
If you get below, so we don't let you can always add to your collateral whenever you want. You're given an address and you can send to that whenever the funds arrive. You can top up your collateral. And if your loan to value gets below 35%, meaning that if the amount that you owe on the loan is 35% or less than the value of the collateral, we will allow you to rebalance your loan, meaning that we will release some of the collateral back to your BTC savings.
Okay.
And then you can withdraw that whenever you like.
Awesome.
It is adjustable.
So, and then in the B2X loan, you said, so you're using, say I put up some Bitcoin as collateral and I use I want basically to stack more Bitcoin with the proceeds of the loan.
Yes.
That stacked Bitcoin becomes collateral for that loan?
Exactly. So what that means is that, like, when you open a B2X loan, we actually issue you a loan at 100% LTV. And then that's used to buy more Bitcoin and is immediately added to your collateral. So, by the time it's open, like, this stuff happens all instantaneously. So you end up at around 50% loan to value.
Okay.
But based on the initial amount of Bitcoin you put in, we can loan you the full amount based on the amount of Bitcoin you put up as collateral.
Interesting. So just because we're putting that other Bitcoin as collateral.
Exactly. If you put up one Bitcoin as collateral for a B2X loan, we'll issue you a loan of, if Bitcoin's $50,000, we loan you $50,000. And instead of sending the $50,000 to you, we automatically purchase more Bitcoin for you and add it to your collateral. So you end up with 2 Bitcoin in collateral, and then you owe us $50,000 plus the interest starts accruing.
Got it. And then
if you, and then, like, the price of Bitcoin goes up, then you can close the loan by selling less than 1 Bitcoin to cover the cost of the loan, and then you have more Bitcoin than you started with. Or people have also used this as kind of a mechanism for dip buying. If they have Bitcoin in their BTC savings on our platform, earning interest, they might quickly open a B2X, for like a few $1,000, and then, maybe the next few weeks they're able to just pay back the dollar amount, and then there's no taxable event, there's no Bitcoin sold. So people use it that way as well.
Yeah, because I guess there'll be a lot of people who just dollar cost, like, they're already all in, and they're just dollar cost averaging every month, so they don't have a way to They don't have like however much money lying about.
Yeah, that's the thing. I see all this like, when the price dips, everybody's like, just buy more Bitcoin. And I'm like, you guys have dry powder just lying around.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
don't
Yeah,
know, man.
no,
Yeah,
no.
yeah.
Plus, I'm the type of person that I'm more likely to ape in when there's euphoria, right? Because I'm like, I'll be like, oh, it's gonna, once
I
we
don't
hit,
want to miss out.
once we hit an all-time high, then we're gonna fucking moon to 100K or whatever. So I'm like, if there's any dry powder lying around, I'm like desperately trying to find it. And then when the dip comes, I'm like, oh, I just did everything I could to find every fiat dollar to change, and now I have nothing.
Yeah, I mean, so that's one thing you can do is if the price dips a bunch and you've kind of used your dry powder, you can open a B2X loan, and then pay back whatever the amount owed on the loan, once you have the dollars coming in. That's a totally viable strategy. Awesome.
Yeah, and then the other thing, one thing I'll say for people listening is I think what's stunning, I guess, like what I did was I just assumed every Bitcoin lender and savings account type situation was the same. And I saw for the ones that I had
a lot of differences.
Yeah, well, the ones I had looked at, like you had to make a monthly payment. The interest was different, like the loan to value stuff. But the biggest thing was basically the monthly payment.
Yeah, a monthly payment, and then no locked in periods as well. Like some of our competitors will have like here's your rate if you for a 3-month loan, and then you're kind of locked in for that 3 months. Like I'm sure they would let you pay it back early, but you're still paying the interest for that 3 months.
Yeah.
Whereas ours are just highly flexible. You pay back, and the day that you pay it back, you stop accruing interest.
Yeah, and I also imagine that if you come into a situation where you need emergency, substantial amount of fiat, and you don't want to sell that amount of Bitcoin, you might not have the cash flow to make the monthly payment on the loan that you want to take out. Whereas with LEDN, like if it's a situation where like I need this money, but I'm going to get it back in like a couple of months, you don't need the cash flow. It takes cash flow out of the equation, which is awesome.
Absolutely, yeah. And the reason we can do that is just because Bitcoin is some of the best collateral that there is. It's highly liquid, so like the risk on our part is minimal because we have control over your Bitcoin.
Everything's over collateralized, right?
Exactly, it's a very, very liquid asset that's over collateralized. So why would we charge you monthly interest payments? Like we know that you're good for it, essentially.
Yeah.
So yeah, I honestly I'm kind of surprised that more companies like don't do that. It's yeah.
Yeah, and then the other thing is like that I wanted to ask you is, I know from what I saw, you only do USDC and Bitcoin. Is that right?
That's correct.
Yeah. So why no altcoins?
Yeah. Well, I mean, we aren't. When you launch an asset on your platform, you're you're not giving it it's not advice to buy the coin, but at the same time, like, we didn't want to be another one of these companies that's just adding all these like tokens and is just, we didn't want to become another casino, right? We want to issue products that, we're confident our users are going to be good long-term, products to offer. Like we don't want to become, exchange number, 200 that lets you, trade between like 20, 30, 40, 100 different random tokens and like chasing the next one. Like we want to stay focused on, like, we're a very Bitcoin oriented company. We want to stay focused on offering the best possible service for Bitcoin, and like that's better for security as well. Like the fewer random coins you add, the less attack surface there is. We have never had an incident. We've never lost a single Satoshi of client funds. We haven't had any sort of leak of private client data. Like we have run a tight ship, like, and you can't say the same for a lot of our competitors. And there definitely is a correlation between the more assets you add, the more risk there is of different things. So we're not willing to sacrifice on the quality of the Bitcoin product in exchange for those other assets. That being said, like, that's not to say that we're going to stick with only these two assets forever. We will eventually be adding Ethereum support, and and probably other stable coins. But we're not going to be chasing adding like Dogecoin or just whatever ETH killer number 20 pops up. So yeah, we are focused on the best Bitcoin product we can provide.
Awesome. All right. Yeah. No, my next question was going to be, what was the thinking behind going with USDC as your chosen stablecoin versus like Tether or whatever other stablecoin?
And part of that is where we are regulated. We are based in Toronto, Canada, and so we're regulated by the Ontario Security, the OSC, the Ontario Securities Commission, which is there's no it's basically the Canadian version of the SEC. It's technically just for Ontario, the province, but as Toronto and Ontario is the kind of financial center of Canada, the other provinces tend to follow the OSC's lead. I'm not a regulatory expert, so I'm not really sure if that situation is going to change sometime soon. But I believe that was part of the consideration.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'm curious as well, though. We actually didn't. So because you were saying before, what are the kind of things that make us stand out? And you brought up the monthly interest payments. I'm curious if there was anything else that you picked up that kind of set us apart from competitors in.
Yeah, well, the other thing was that you're focusing on doing Bitcoin and USDC only versus like just every whatever tokens out
Right.
there, the 9,000 tokens, B2X, SHIB loan or whatever, which you guys don't have.
And D2X, Doge,
yeah,
or Doge.
oh, because B2X is Bitcoin.
No plans to add that in the near future.
Yeah.
I would say that there is one more thing that I want to highlight from us, which is that we're the first lender to issue proof of reserves.
That's the third thing I was going to say. So what is proof of reserves?
So twice a year, every 6 months at present, and we might start doing it more frequently, but every 6 months, we partner with Armanino LLC, which is an accounting firm that offers a proof of reserve service. So we take our books, we anonymize all the data, and then we provide it to Armanino to review. And they basically independently attest that our books are in order, that we have the amount of reserves we claim to have, that all of our assets and liabilities line up. And what they do is they create a Merkle tree, which is a kind of cryptographic data structure where you can prove the inclusion of a certain kind of point of data in an overall set. And they create a Merkle tree of everyone's accounts. And again, they don't know who the accounts are, so your client privacy is still protected. But each kind of account is a unique hash ID. And so twice a year when they do this, you could log into your account. And if you had an account balance at LEDN at the time they did their proof of reserves, you can take your hash ID, you go to the Armanino website, and they have a tool there, you put it in, and it will say, this account, had, X amount of Bitcoin and USDC, on it at the time of proof of reserves. And as long as that lines up with your account, you can know that, a third party has confirmed that we are operating as we say we are. There's no funny business going on with the books. There's we haven't been like hacked that have been hiding it. So we were the first lender in the cryptocurrency space to offer this service. And it's just a way of kind of making sure that, like over the last 12 years, there have been a lot of poorly run companies that have either been incompetent and, mismanaged their clients' funds and blown up, or gotten hacked and had funds stolen. And proof of reserves is our way of saying, don't just take our word for it. We can demonstrate through this third party that we are operating as we say we are.
Yeah, absolutely. I think so. The other topics I cover on the podcast, or I kind of frame it as a podcast that's focused on topics around privacy. So using Bitcoin privately in a self-sovereign way, and obviously, I know that using a custodian for your Bitcoin is a big taboo with some people, and it's definitely something. Obviously, I think one of the great things about Bitcoin is that it can be a bearer asset if you want it to be, and you can hold your own keys, and that's amazing. But I also think that the user themselves can become a security threat to their own Bitcoin if they don't know how to handle it properly. And I disagree that in every case everyone should hold their own keys. I think that everyone has the potential to learn to handle Bitcoin properly and then store their own keys. But if you're not prepared properly, you can actually be the cause of loss of your own Bitcoins. And you might have actually been better off holding it with a custodian. And I understand the concerns with using custodial services, not holding your own keys. But at the same time, I think like some companies that are reputable, their whole thing is focused around Bitcoin, holding Bitcoin securely, right? So I believe there is scope for picking a company that knows what they're doing. And mistakes can happen to everyone. It can happen to a custodian. A mistake can also happen to you, and you can lose your own keys too, right? And you're not immune to loss by holding them yourself. So I actually wanted to touch on that because I know there are other services, deposit and lending services, that sort of market a multi-sig solution for their loans. But having looked at it more closely, it's a situation where like they hire an independent third party to hold one key. You as the depositor or the loaner hold one key to the collateral, and the company holds one key. But at that point, like, you know, it's like, let's say the company that made you the loan, there's a disagreement between you and them. The independent third party is hired by that company. So are you really going to be able to convince them that their customer is wrong and to give you and sign over your Bitcoins to you, screwing over the other company? Do you understand what I mean?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. There's a lot there. I'd love to explore the kind of the trade-offs between kind of holding your own keys versus depositing them with a service. The main company I know of that you're referring to, I think, is Unchained Capital.
Yeah.
And they are a competitor, but I really love those guys. I
me too.
Closely with Neil Woodfine and I worked together at Blockstream for quite a while.
Oh, awesome.
And then we decided to work for competitors afterwards. But but I like their model a lot. So they from what I understand, when you open a loan with them, you can view that the coins haven't moved. They're on chain, and you hold one of three keys. Second key is held by Unchained Capital, and third key is held by a third party. And so it's a different model than just with us. You are we take full control of the coins when you collateralize them with us. And with Unchained model, like you still are giving up custody, and that which you
can't sign for your coins.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But I mean, like that's inherent to the business model, right? Because if the price, if the price of Bitcoin crashes a lot, or you don't pay back your loan, they need some way to move those funds and claim them to cover, the loan if you default. That's inherent to the kind of the entire model of this, right? Now, you do get some more assurances. So I'm not going it absolutely is true that there is it's a different risk profile, because for them you can actually directly view that the coins haven't moved. Whereas for us, we do those coins are combined with the BTC savings deposits, and we do lend those out and earn yield on it.
Yeah.
Now we pass that on to the user in the form of more favorable rates and the higher flexibility on our loans. Whereas with Unchained, you'll get they have various lock-in terms. Like you have to lock it up for like 3 months or 6 months, and their rates are somewhat higher as well. And that's the trade-off you make there.
Yeah, I think I looked at their loan product and it was maybe 14%.
It depends on the period.
Yeah, I think it
depends on the loan term.
Gets more expensive the longer you borrow as well, I think.
Yeah, I don't know their precise loan rates off the top of my head, but in general, they tend to be more expensive and be less flexible.
And there's a monthly payment.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I don't. And again, I like the trade-off there though.
Yeah. This is absolutely not to shit on Unchained Capital at all. It's just to give people information, because, for example, when I was exploring getting a Bitcoin loan, number one, I actually can't get one with Unchained Capital because of my jurisdiction. They don't service. That was another thing. When I led in, like you guys work with clients from like 100 or something countries, right?
Over 127 countries now. Yeah. So we are a global. Actually, we have a huge focus in Latin America as well. Like a lot of our clients are based down in Venezuela, Colombia, Argentina, Mexico. Yeah. But yeah, so just to go back earlier, you kind of talked about kind of the not your keys, not your coin ethos in the space, which is I totally respect that, and I come from that world, and like I've got a bunch of different hardware wallets. I have Blockstream Jade, I have Cold Card, I have Ledger, I have Trezor. And I still do hold my own keys with some of my coins as well. Some of them I trust to LEDN and earn interest in PTC savings, and I have made use of the loans myself before. And it's interesting you're saying before that there is risk in people holding their own coins. It's just a different type of risk. I'm a bit more hesitant to push that angle in that I think it is very, very important that people learn how to hold their own keys. And there definitely is risk with at kind of a systemic level in Bitcoin if too many people if fewer and fewer people exercise their self-sovereignty. So the
Agreed.
last thing, like we never want to be a company that's trying to convince people to give up control over their coins. If you currently have your coins deposited with some other custodian, you might as well move into us and earn interest if you're going to do that. If you are content with keeping your coins in your hardware wallet, keep them there. That's honestly, we're not trying to convince people to part with their coins in that way. For me, when I first I was a LEDN client a few years before I was hired, and I started just by using the product just by putting a portion of my coins on in the savings account, and just because I figured that was the risk reward trade-off that I was comfortable with. With loans, as we discussed with the comparing our model to the on-chain capital model, there is if you want to finance your Bitcoins and get liquidity without selling them, there isn't really a way to do that without giving up custody in some form.
That's the main. I wanted to address it because because of the topic of this podcast. I don't want to then have people saying like it's about privacy and using Bitcoin self-sovereign in a self-sovereign way, and then you're having you're talking about a service where you have to give up your keys. That's not being private or self-sovereign or whatever. But again, so if somebody's in a situation where they don't want to sell their coins and they need fiat liquidity and they don't have any other source, you have a choice. You either sell your Bitcoin, in which case you don't hold the keys to those Bitcoins anymore because you sold them, or you have to trust somebody to hold them for you, and you can get some fiat liquidity, and you hopefully at the end get them back. I say hopefully because nothing's 100% guaranteed, but you take that potential risk, however big or small it might be.
Yeah, absolutely. You might find yourself in a situation, as many of our clients have, where you either get to temporarily give up control over your coins, or you got to sell them. And even if you're hardcore, not your keys, not your coins, you might understand that that trade-off being quite worth it. And I think something that's underappreciated by a lot of Bitcoiners is having the option to do something is such a massive win. And what I mean by that is, do you run a node, for example?
No, not yet. I have 2 unbuilt nodes here.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, about to.
Okay, so do it. Run a node. Learn how to do it. So I've run a node on and off over the years, and for me, having a node running 24/7 and using it for all my payments is not is cool. I love that there are people that do that. But for me, most of the wins is the fact that I know I can do that. If push comes to shove and I need to take direct control over my coins, I know I can very quickly withdraw to my own wallet, and I can have my node up and running from zero within a couple of days, and I can be fully self-sovereign. And so just being able to use that, to exercise that, I think is huge. And again, and it's also really important that there are a lot of people out there who do that constantly. And this is how I see the kind of the emerging lending market and the kind of gradual financialization of Bitcoin to this degree. There are people who will kind of claim it's just turning into the same as legacy banking system. No, it's absolutely not, because of the legacy banking system, you don't have an option to withdraw to your own node, right? You can withdraw in cash, which has some similarities, but A, it's kind of hard to use it. You can't send it digitally, and B, you can't audit the supply, right? But you can with a node. So for us, even if you are temporarily giving up direct control, you still have the option. Again, all of our products are highly flexible in that you can get out very, very quickly. You pay back your loan, even if you don't have the cash on hand, you sell whatever is required of the collateral to cover the cost, and then you withdraw your coins onto your control. You can do that within, like I said, we guarantee it within 7 days, but usually it's within a day. Same with the savings. If you can earn interest, but very, very quickly, you can withdraw to being directly under your control. And this is where I think Bitcoin can really help with the legacy financial system. And that, like, I'm not one of these people who thinks that the legacy financial system was like, that the kind of fiat world is this totally kind of evil system that's been forced on us. I view things more that, like, Bitcoin is the next step of improving this system. If we can get more of these services working, it basically offers competition for the for existing banks, and it will force them to improve their service if they still want people to use them.
Yeah.
And that's where I see there's a similar thing going on here. Like, if you're happy holding your coins in cold storage, keep doing that. Like, wouldn't like not encourage you to give that up. But there may come a time where you're like, listen, I temporarily need access to like a few $1,000s. Do I want to sell my Bitcoin, or if I know I can pay this back in a few months, do I just want to leave the coins with someone else, do my thing, and then I won't miss out on any price rises. I won't trigger capital gains tax. Like I was on Rob Sultan's podcast about a week ago talking about this, and he runs a business where he trades in precious metals, and he was saying before sometimes he has like some product he knows he can acquire and sell at like a 20% margin over, within a month and a half, but he quickly needs access to like $10,000 or something. In that situation, if he's got, if his business has Bitcoin on the books that they don't want to sell, we're the perfect, solution to that kind of thing. And then once he's done with that, we draw back to cold storage. That's, totally an option.
Yeah. And I definitely agree. It's better to have than not to have. Yeah. So you guys said, obviously you're taking control of the keys. Do you guys custody the coins yourself? Do you have an in-house team that's doing that, or do you use a custodian?
We use BitGo insured custody for our custody. And then remember though, due to the nature of our business model, the majority of assets are lent out.
Okay.
Right. We generate yield for
that's how you're making money.
So savings. That's how we produce interest. Exactly. Yeah.
If the Bitcoin's not being lent out, you're not making any money on that Bitcoin, right?
Exactly. And again, when we first launched our dollar loans, it was similar to not the same, but similar to Unchained Capital in that we had control of the keys, but we didn't move the coins that were in collateral. Like, you could view the UTXO and see that it hadn't moved. But again, we found that there was greater demand for more favorable interest rates rather than being able to see that the coins hadn't moved. So yeah, we do lend those assets out.
Okay, and then
I guess that's speaking to that. We use our custodian, but again, a percentage of our funds are still just held in direct reserves we can access. Yeah, that's just to make sure there aren't interruptions to deposits, withdrawals, and then we have our own company reserves. They're stored there. Yeah.
Awesome. If you guys liquidate, you might not be able to share this information. So if you can't, then just say so. But do you guys? Yeah. If you guys are liquidating someone's if somebody's gone, their loan to value ratio has gone above 80% or whatever.
Yeah, and they didn't respond to the margin call.
Would LEDN ever just keep those Bitcoins, or do you guys convert to fiat? Like, are you guys hodling basically? Are you guys hodling some Bitcoin yourselves?
So we, as a company, we do hold some Bitcoin ourselves, but in the context of closing out someone's loan like that. No, we generally just we would generally just sell, because you're kind of asking whether or not our Bitcoin reserves increase, if we kind of deliberately increase our Bitcoin reserves in response to a liquidation. The answer is no. We do hold Bitcoin on platform, but or Bitcoin in reserve ourselves. But kind of we target a specific amount based on what our risk and yield team thinks makes sense, and that's not really affected by liquidations. No.
Understood. And then so
we are bullish on Bitcoin.
Awesome. Yeah. Who isn't? So there's a couple
of financial advice, by the way, guys.
Yeah, NFA.
That's the decisions that we make for our own reserves.
NFA. Just a couple of I guess things that might be of interest. So there's been a couple of in the context of what you guys do with the Bitcoin, because another topic of contention is the rehypothecation of Bitcoin, blah, 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 blah. So you guys are just basically lending the Bitcoin out to LEDN loan takers, right? Because
it depends if it's the BTC savings or USDC savings. So if you deposit Bitcoin with us to and want to earn interest on BTC, we lend that out primarily through Genesis Capital. They're kind of one of, if not the biggest lender in the cryptocurrency space. They typically do B2B lending. And so they will lend that out to various institutions. I think it's a lot of medium-sized hedge funds that want to operate in certain trading strategies that require holding Bitcoin, but they don't want exposure to Bitcoin price volatility. And that's where love demand comes from. Then they borrow the Bitcoin, and then that way, no matter what happens to the price of Bitcoin, they kind of stay neutral. And for USDC savings, it's a lot simpler. Most of those that's used to finance our other loans to retail clients. So if you are depositing USDC with us, we are lending that USDC out to other clients who took out loans with us.
Got it.
And again, just most of that interest we pass back to the USDC savings clients.
Got it. Yeah. No, the reason I ask is that there's two things that happened recently was there was a headline claiming that Celsius, which I think does a similar thing to you guys, well, does some deposits and loans. I don't know if they do loans, but they lost 50 million wrapped Bitcoin in that they had deposited in Badger DAO or something. I'm not that familiar with DAOs and stuff. So and not that it's Bitcoin, but I saw today or yesterday, I'd never heard of them before, but Bitmart had it said one set of keys that held Ethereum and BSC, and they lost between 150 to 200 million dollars of client funds, which they are going to pay back out of their own money. So good for them. And by the way, it's something like, I think sometimes on Bitcoin Twitter, we laugh at these, altcoin hacks and stuff. They're obviously horrible for the people that they happen to. A lot of people like to say, like, we told you so, you should have held Bitcoin, you hold but it's still a horrible thing to happen, nevertheless. So not to laugh at it, but just to make people aware, like we're not going to see like a LEDN loses funds in a Badger DAO wrap BTC.
Yeah, we're not YOLOing into DeFi schemes to chase higher rates.
Okay.
We're very, very conservative about where we generate the yield. Again, almost all of it is through Genesis Capital, which is extremely well capitalized. They publish quarterly reports, and they very thoroughly vet who they lend out to, such that even if something goes wrong with some trade, the institutions are lending to have many other assets that can cover whatever is owed on the loan.
Yeah.
We're not taking clients' BTC deposits and wrapping them on DeFi to chase these high rates for the very reasons that you have just brought up.
Yeah.
That's one thing that actually that's been we're very, very well positioned in terms of being kind of safe in terms of our jurisdiction. Like Canada's regulatory environment has been much more stable. Some of our competitors have had to pull out of various jurisdictions or discontinue offering products and are dealing with legal troubles. And we've been in a very, very comfortable position because we have been a lot more conservative in terms of the products we roll out and where we operate. And then the other thing is just in our we're taking a much more cautious approach in yield generation. Some of these like crazy high rates you see people getting on DeFi, like this is why they're getting them. They have these types of risks associated with them, and we're very well aware of this and are being super careful.
But so I have friends who have they maybe use BlockFi and so I've seen as the deposit rates have come down and down and down and down and down to like almost ridiculously low levels, like laughable levels. Yet I just from reading Twitter and stuff, and I realize not everything I read on Twitter is necessarily true, but you hear a lot of stories about companies, these types of companies taking, I guess, higher risk approaches to generating yield on in their business. So they're offering a lower deposit rates to their clients, and they're taking more risks with the funds, where it seems as like you guys are being more conservative and are being able to offer better rates all around deposits and on loans.
I mean, the long and short of it is that our loan products are very profitable. And like our Bitcoin rate, our kind of tier one Bitcoin rate, we offer 6.25%, and that is above market rate. So we are passing on some extra interest to our clients. It's, you know, a means of attracting people to the platform.
Yeah, like it's a cost of customer acquisition kind of thing,
exactly.
right?
You know, but like the I mean, that's the long and short of it. I think also a lot of these other companies are just um, they're chasing just higher gains.
Yeah.
And for us, I think we take a much more kind of long term view on these things. We're willing to be patient.
Yeah, well,
And
I wonder if that's if the reason why, you know, that perhaps they've taken risky strategies that to chase extra gains, they've maybe lost some money, because obviously we don't have it, we're not privy to what's going on that, what happens in the background for them. They've maybe lost a substantial amount of funds, you know, maybe in the GBTC premium turns negative, and you're banking on it being plus 30%, and suddenly it's minus 15, and you know 80% of whatever trade you were doing, of that trade that you were doing to get yield, is now gone. Maybe that's what's leading to offering lower rates. It's just being risky, it going wrong, and then you can't offer depositors the rates that you thought you could.
yeah, I mean, you know, like I'm not in the room where they make.
Yeah, no, this is all speculation.
Behind the scenes, so
this is all speculation.
I could tell you what we're doing, and I could tell you we've raised our eyebrows a few times at what other companies are doing, but I can't say too much more.
Yeah, cool. And it's cool to see you guys do the round. Like, well, I've met some of you guys in person in El Salvador, but I know that you've been going around on pods, and you know everyone knows who you are. So it's always nice when people are making themselves extremely, you know, seen in the community, and everyone knows you, and you have a reputation that you don't want to ruin.
We're not some faceless like corp, like, you know, like people. It means a lot to us that people trust us and use our service, and we care a lot about like our clients, you know, like providing products that are actually useful to clients. And you know, like I was saying before about how careful we are with like where we operate, what products we offer, and we make ourselves available. Like, you know, like also like if you look at like how we're reviewed on Trustpilot, we have like 4.8 out of 5 stars for our client success team. Like if you contact us, we get back to you right away. We are highly available, and like that's a really core value of us, that we try and be as transparent as we can. We do come on these shows, you know, we like you know, we put ourselves out there. We are available, like, so you can you know, so you're not going to get in this situation with us where you know, we like you can't, like, you know, find a contact with anyone. You don't know what's happened. Like, you know, we will let you know what's being done with your funds. Like, you know, if you need help with something, we are present for you. So yeah.
Awesome. That's great. All right, sir. I am getting down to really, I think, my last question for and it's still on the topic of LEDN, but I was just wondering. So last week, towards the end of last week, we had a big drawdown in the price of Bitcoin, and I'm just wondering what that looks like for you guys operationally, and what kind of, without obviously disclosing any individuals, like what are clients doing in a situation like that? Do you see a bunch of people depositing Bitcoin so they can get like a B2X loan so they can stack the dip, or like, what kind of activity do you see, like similarities in a whole bunch of client activity when there's like drawdowns like that?
Yeah, so there absolutely are clients who dip comes, they think, okay, buying opportunity, and they use B2X. That does happen. At the same time as well, when the price dips, that means a client's loan to value ratio is increasing. It means the amount that they have collateralized is getting closer to the amount that's been loaned to them. So we do a lot of effort on our part to reach out to these clients and say, hey, just so you know, like your LTV is getting, you know, it's 70%, please top up. We do this on social media. You'll see us kind of recirculating our like loan management tips. Again, last thing we want to do is liquidate anyone. We want our clients, you know, like happy with these loans and continuing to tick up the interest. That's how we make money.
Yep.
And so, yeah, usually with the price dips, it kind of, especially in my end and the communication side of things, we are
We're really just trying to make sure everyone is aware of it, make sure people know how they can quickly top up their loans. That's generally what happens on our end.
Nice. So, and then what kind of client behavior do you see on a dip? Do you see a whole bunch of money flowing in to buy dip, or do you just mostly see people posting, more Bitcoin to make sure their collateral levels are like at a safe rate?
Yeah, like I said, it's a combination of two things. You will get some people B2Xing to take advantage of the lower prices. And then, you will get a lot of people either, topping up their collateral. So if someone has a loan open and then they also have funds in their BTC savings earning interest, they might just like quickly move it into their collateral. And then you can also just top up your collateral from an external source.
Okay.
So if you have, let's say you have a loan open, and you prefer to hold your keys instead of use the BTC savings, you just send to the address, and once the coins arrive, they're automatically topped up for you.
Nice.
So yeah, that's the main activity.
What about when there's a price spike? Like, do you see people going like FOMO B2X to buy more?
Yeah. So volatility in general will often trigger some more trade activity. So we do allow people to trade between USDC and BTC on our platform. The kind of advantage there is that you're constantly earning interest while you trade.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
Which is and so volatility just generally does increase trade volumes, and it also depends on your time frame. So like during extended bear market periods, there's a bit less client activity over time. Whereas during extended bull market periods, you have more people signing up to the platform, or people are aware of Bitcoin, and more people are starting to use services like that. So yeah, there's a general increase in general activity during extended bull market periods.
Awesome. Well, what I'll say is I have quite a few friends who are, not super hardcore Bitcoiners, but have some Bitcoin and definitely don't hold their own keys, and they have them deposited with other platforms. I'll be sending them this podcast. So
you should. I have good news for you.
Oh, go on.
We've kind of amped up our referral program for December. Anytime someone refers a new client and the client funds their account with at least 0.0015 Bitcoin, it's around $75 worth. And if they hold it there for 15 days, then both the referrer and the referred client get $50, 50 USDC, just automatically credit to them. It's and you can do as many clients as you like. So,
nice. All my friends who are elsewhere, I'll get them over.
So
Awesome. Awesome. And then I'll just tell people as well, check out LEDN.io is the company you work for.
LEDN.io.
Yeah. And then the Unhashed podcast.
That's correct. The Unhashed podcast.
And you're at Mario_Gibney on Twitter, right?
That's correct.
So everyone can go follow you on there. Mario, thank you very much for coming on the show.
Thanks so much for having me.